Jay! Wait, what?
Welcome to Yo Jay. This is your show where I A your cue. That's disgusting. I know it is, but this is a very hot topic today, and that's why I'm wearing my Sriracha shirt. Because today's topic is a hot one. We heated up the last 2 days on Twitter with Yo Jays coming in from the Twitter universe through email, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Everybody wants to talk about Rory McIlroy and his squats that he put on Instagram. Let me preface this with how it all got set up. I got a great text and tweet from Austin Smithers at AwSmithers11 who says, "Yo Jay, I'd love to hear y'all's opinion on Brandel Chamblee's comments on Rory's training workout regime." And so, Austin, this is your Yo Jay. Now, everybody's talking about Brandel Chamblee had some comments comparing what was happening with Tiger Woods when he started training heavy and what was going on with Rory McIlroy now, and saying that he thinks that Rory McIlroy training with heavy weights and building up his body is actually going to be a detriment to his golf career. Now, you cannot compare Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy. Completely different physical needs. They're also training using completely different training techniques. So that's a very tough comparison. But I do want to get on the topic today about training for rotational athletes and using weightlifting and truly break down the concepts of weight training. Because when you guys talk about weight training and you guys talk about training in the gym and is it good or is it bad, you cannot generalize weightlifting or fitness into one category. There's actually many different ways, styles, different times of the year that we use different training techniques. So I want to break that down for you guys today, like I did on Twitter over the last 2 days, and really help you understand better how to train a rotational athlete to generate more speed and more power. Now, let's get into it. As we started looking at what happened was this comment came from Brandel Chamblee about Rory. Rory's response to that was delivering this fantastic video on his squat. Now, the problem that I have with this particular video is it's the end of his workout. He's doing 3 sets of 3 reps. So that means he's doing 3 reps, 1, 2, 3, then he takes a break, and then he does another 3, takes a break, and the video that he's showing there is the last set of 3 reps. Now, the problem that I have with that video is the fact that he is kind of rounding through his shoulders, and I made a comment about that on Twitter saying that I wasn't crazy about the form, but the fact that he's using 3 sets of 3 means that he's in the strength zone, and I'm all for that. The weight that he was using was very manageable, except for he was fatigued and he was at the end of his set. The one thing I would say though, I prefer with my rotational athletes to do a front squat instead of a back squat. So a back squat is where the weight is behind your neck. When you put the weight behind your neck, it starts to flex the T-spine, especially when you get fatigued. It's hard to hold that bar up. And you can see Rory at the end of this exercise really struggling to keep his T-spine up. But if you use a front squat where you take the bar and you put it on the front of the body, now you start going through your squatting technique. It actually forces you to stay upright, because if you don't, the bar is going to fall off the front side. So I really prefer the front squat. I believe it's safer. And first and foremost, in our job of making our athletes better, faster, stronger, our number one job of a strength coach is do not injure your athletes. So I really like the front squat. That's the only thing I would say. As a negative comment, I would like to see that front squat instead of the back squat. Now, we have to understand a few concepts here. And this is what I talked about in my Twitter field when we started getting these responses back. For me, the very first layer of fitness that you want to put on any athlete is trying to establish some function. You want to have a layer, a foundation of function. And what do I mean by function? Let's just say if you're at home and you can't touch your toes. Well, it sucks if you have to tie your shoelaces up. If you have to get down on one knee and you're like, this whole effort has to be put forth just to tie up your shoes.
Are you kidding me? Come on!
if you can't touch your toes, before we start doing deadlifts and squats and anything that has to involve hip flexion, what I want to do is fix your limitation, be it a mobility or a stability issue. Fix the limitation before we start to layer in strength. So that is the foundation of function. Now, what we saw with Rory here, he's doing strength training. Foundation training here, strength training up here. Now, there's this gap in between, and this is the beautiful thing, folks. This is where I really feel, in my job, this is where I've made the biggest changes in my rotational athletes. I've had the opportunity to work with some of the greatest athletes on earth, from the NFL, NHL, tennis, extreme sports world, and now golf. And what I found was working in this area in between strength and function, which I call joint integrity and high threshold training, that area is where you really make your difference in your athletes, especially if they're trying to generate more speed. So how does that work, coach? Good question. Thank you for asking. The way it works is this. Joint integrity. If you think of, let's say, the shoulder girdle, okay? So this whole complex of my shoulder. Well, I can have the biggest arms in the world. I mean, look at this. It's like 5 packs of hot dogs taped to my radius and ulnar. I mean, really. Let's just say I had this big, strong arm, but the way it's attached to my body, to where my scapula and shoulder girdle interact with the arm, if that's unstable, it doesn't matter how big my arm is. It really doesn't make a difference. If we want to transfer energy through my body, through my shoulder girdle, into my arm, the shoulder complex has to be stable and it has to have integrity. So what I've found is, by doing the same thing with the glutes, the pelvis, trying to control the pelvis, core stability, and expressing energy through the scapula into the arms, I've been able to generate athletes to have more speed, more power, more strength than ever before. And that's without actually lifting really any substantial weight. Now, once we have joint integrity and we've established, so we have a foundation of function, now we have joint integrity, now we can start to layer in that strength. Now, this is the important thing for you to understand. That's where Rory is in his progression. He's now in that strength and power zone. The cool thing about this is you cannot be strong enough, as far as I'm concerned. The stronger you are, the better ability you're going to have to generate speed. Now, strength training by itself will not generate more speed, but strength training allows you to move faster without injuring yourself. It's almost like you're preparing the body to move faster. It's like if you're driving a golf cart and you took the governor off. Well, it'd be very dangerous to take the governor off if you didn't have the reinforced brakes and reinforced suspension on that golf cart. You'd injure yourself. So that's what strength training is. That joint integrity and strength is preparing the body for power and speed training. Now, I also got a lot of interest from in my little Twitter feed. Nick Shurtak at Golf Progress. Nick Shurtak says, Yo Jay, whack. Can you elaborate on hypertrophy is not ideal? Now, Nick, I said in my Twitter feed that I want my athletes to, in general, stay the same size. So if they came in and they're 185 pounds and they're a world-class athlete with optimal speed, I want them to maintain that same body, but I want to kind of reinforce that body with a better structure so they don't injure themselves and still be able to maintain that speed. But I've also had athletes that came in, let's say, at 165 pounds, 5'10", 165 pounds, and they are ridiculously fast and explosive athletes, but they don't really have the body structure to handle those speeds. So in those particular athletes, I want to actually add hypertrophy. For those of you at home, hypertrophy is adding size to the muscle. Making the muscle stronger is one thing. You can make a muscle stronger without making it bigger, but hypertrophy training is actually making the muscle larger. For a rotational athlete, especially like golfers, you don't want massive arms on a golfer. We want to express energy through the arm, but the arm itself does not have to be massive. If you're an NHL hockey player, I agree, you need to put some hypertrophy. Football players, put hypertrophy on. That's like padding for the impact and the stuff that you're going to be putting the body through during your contact sport. But for golfers, tennis players, rotational extreme sport athletes, I'd be happier if they could just maintain the same size. Now, let's get back to those PGA Tour players that we put 20 pounds of muscle on over a 4-year period. Well, 20 pounds of muscle, think of it this way. Speed and power, really ultimate power, is mass times acceleration. So if you have a large mass and you accelerate it, that is power. Well, the two variables are different. Let's say in baseball, we have a pitcher, okay? Not a pitcher of beer. You're not watching baseball. I'm talking about the actual, players. So we have a baseball pitcher throwing the ball. Let's say we have two athletes. One athlete is 5'10", 160 pounds, and he throws a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. Now we have another athlete who's 6'4", 255 pounds, and he is also throwing 90 miles an hour. Which of those two examples do you think would last longer, have a longer career, maybe put less stress on the body to throw that same speed? Well, the 265-pound athlete is using mass to throw that ball plus acceleration. But the lighter athlete has to use almost purely acceleration because they don't have as much mass behind them. I think you get where I'm going with this. So on a PGA Tour player, if we have an athlete who is light but generating massive speeds, by adding some hypertrophy, adding some muscle mass to their body, we can actually dampen that speed. So the speed is still being expressed through the body, but the body doesn't have to go through so much stress and strain to create it. You'll also see the footwork. If we were to get that athlete on a body track, for instance, and look at how their feet are interacting with the ground, you would see it's a lot less volatile. More force is being applied to the ground, but it's not like jumping out of your shoes to generate that speed. I always find when you see junior athletes, young kids who are trying to generate power, a lot of them are jumping off the ground and they just don't have the mass to generate that speed. So they have to use other parts of their body, other strategies to generate that kind of speed. So this is what I'm talking about. Let's get back to the topic at hand, which is Rory McIlroy's workouts. I give him a thumbs up. I think it's fantastic. Rory, you're in good hands. I think you're doing a great job. Your squats, let's get a front squat going on there. But other than that, the rest of your programming, you are getting stronger. You are building that base, and it is going to create a body that's going to be able to last a long, long time. So I hope that answers your question. Austin Smithers and Nick Shurtak, I hope that answers your questions. And if you guys have a question for the coach, just tweet, Instagram, Facebook, send me an email. Just send it to @JasonGlassLab and make sure you give me a hashtag, that's #YoJ, and we'll answer your questions on the show. I hope you guys have enjoyed this version of YoJ, and until next week, dream big, over-deliver, and listen to the Coach Glass podcast on iTunes every Wednesday, and cheers, everybody. Jigga, 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 wick, wick, whack.
Logos only, logos only.
Jay,
Logos only,
Jay,
logos only,
Jay,
logos only.
Jay.